Hi everyone, and happy fall. This is Jane Howington. I'm sitting in for Heidi Schweikhofer on North of 60 this month, and I'm glad that you were able to join us, and I have a wonderful program on sage. I do want to tell you though that sage doesn't stand for a color. It doesn't stand for an herb. SAGE stands for stimulation, adventure, growth, and education. That's SAGE. And we have two experts here on SAGE today. We have Diane Ruppelt and Gurmak Bhatia. So I am going to introduce them a little bit, and we'll go right into this, and we'll probably have trouble staying within our half an hour because there's so much to offer with SAGE. But first, Diane, if you could just maybe start with who you are, what you're doing with SAGE, and what SAGE is.
Okay. I'm Diane Ruppelt, and I have been a college administrator for more than 30, close to 40 years. And I met the person who created SAGE at Tri-C in the 1980s.
Okay.
And she created Encore program there. And then years went on, she retired, and she came back to the Hudson area after she'd been out of the state for a while and set up SAGE.
Now, when you talk about an Encore program, you're talking about a lifelong learning program?
Exactly.
Okay.
Just really the same format as SAGE. So it's classes all day long on a given day of the week. They're on Fridays, and so several selections each hour.
Okay. For courses, and this is for mostly seniors?
It is 55 and up.
Okay.
And we're not checking any IDs, so we've got a few retired veterans too that might be a little bit younger.
Okay, great.
Doesn't matter.
Great.
Just interested in people that are interested in lifelong learning.
Good. So, Gurmak, how did you get involved in SAGE, and what makes it special for you?
I got involved because my wife, she found out about SAGE, and she had attended some courses, and she'd come home and she'd tell me all about it, and I, little by little, by osmosis, began to understand what SAGE was about. And I asked myself, is there something I can do there, or whether as an instructor or as a student? And clearly, the learning is lifelong, as Diane said. So I knew I could learn something, but so as soon as I retired, I began to explore how to get involved. And just one evening, we were invited to someone that Neelam had met at SAGE. We were invited to their house, and the founder of SAGE was there, and we got to talking, and so I started to like what I was hearing, and I said, how can I get involved? And she said, well, I'll think about it. So one thing led to another. Coincidentally, just when Diane was getting involved, is when she said, we need someone to do some of the things, some of the nuts and bolts part of getting the venue ready for all the classes, and we need someone to do our website. We need someone to do all those kinds of things, so administrative type things. So I said, sure, I can do all of that. So one thing led to another. I became the person who sends out all the broadcast emails, keep the student information up to date, and I do update the website on a regular basis. And so on. So that's how I got involved, and it was a coincidence that both of us came in about the same time.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the way I got involved. But the credit goes to my wife for getting me interested in it.
When you two are talking about SAGE, it almost sounds like a private club.
Interesting.
And because you've got students and stuff, but you're over at somebody's house, and it's a lot of what you're talking about reminds me of, and I know it's not a private club, but can you tell me a little bit about kind of the organizational details and who's it for and how do they get involved?
It's for anyone who is interested in lifelong learning, is interested in continuing to learn as they age. I was talking to a lady on the phone. We have a phone number which I think you'll put up too,
yes.
and you can leave a message for me, and I'll call you back. And she was saying, I just turned 86. I'm gonna seize the day and live my life to the fullest because COVID is on waning. And I said, we're right here for you.
Great.
You know, we want to make sure you're happy and having a great time on a Tuesday.
So anybody can get involved. Now they would have to sign up. They can't just show up. They'd sign. It's almost like you have school terms. So you have a term and you have certain programs that you offer during that term.
Right. In the fall we did 7 weeks. We start in fall. We start after the high holidays for our Jewish residents, and then in the winter it's 4 weeks. We are going to start the second Tuesday in January, just 4 weeks, and then in the spring we do 7 weeks again after Easter.
Okay.
We start up after Easter.
Okay.
So the dates are posted on the website, and there's a brochure, and it looks like this.
Okay. And that gives you course offerings?
Course offerings. This last time we had 20 offerings with 15 faculty.
Okay.
So there can be 2, 3, or 4 offerings each hour, and there's a time for lunch, or you can keep on taking classes right through lunch.
Now, here's a little bit of drudgery, I guess, but if you wanted to sign up for those, you can see the classes online or in the paper brochure. Can you sign up both either online or in paper? Because some people aren't really computer literate, so they might have trouble if it's just online.
So the way we have tried to make it easy for folks is if they're computer literate and they go to our website, there are links to each of these documents. The registration form is available through there. The course descriptions are available through there. Another document that can be downloaded so that they can have it for themselves. And the website actually is optimized also for use on your personal device, so they can use an iPhone or an Android phone. There's a lot of content there, so sometimes it gets a little dreary to page through, scroll through a lot of material. But we also have folks who have refused to get an email. So when we announce these things, when Diane gets finished with the offerings, she'll send them to me. I'll copy and paste them and make put them on the website. But then also we try to keep our address list up to date. So we broadcast this email with these attachments. So the course descriptions as well as the registration form go out to folks. Now some people don't have a printer, they have a computer, but they don't have a printer. So there's a lot of different ways.
Right.
Now these brochures are distributed or deposited in several locations throughout Hudson and throughout many other libraries. So they're available for pickup. They can also call the phone and they can request Diane to register them over the phone. So all sorts of ways people can register for these classes. And there are people who are interested in 3 classes or they're interested in 4 classes, but I think for one fee they have the ability to take classes all day for the entire time. So there are 7 weeks and 6 classes a day. They can attend all of those for that.
And they can call me and I'll register, and they
Okay.
can just ship their check in to Christ Church Episcopal.
Or
So-
bring it in with them on the first day.
And
Okay.
there's same day registration on the first day.
Okay.
So we're there early.
So we've got this now. We understand what SAGE is, and we understand that it's Tuesday, and you can spend all or part of Tuesday there, and that there's 6 classes on a day. You could use as many as little. You said there was only one fee, so you pay one fee and you can do whatever you want. Have you taught before
Yes,
there? What have
yes.
you taught?
last spring, I offered 2 lectures. Was it 2 or 3?
It was 3 or 2.
Anyway,
Yeah.
two lectures on what do disasters teach us. That was the title of it.
Okay.
And so I won't go into a lot of details. But this last term, Neelam and I together, we taught 3 lectures titled East Meets West. And it came out of us just being there and folks asking us about India in general, and then they asked us about arranged marriages, and then one thing led to another, and they said, well, was your marriage arranged? And we said yes, and they said, who? And they wanted to know more, and so we said, Diane and Ed and I had a chat, and then Neelam was obviously part of it, and we said, how about we put together some lectures. And so we did a 3-lecture series where we talked about India first, a little bit of history, going back 3500 BC and till today. And then we talked about foods and dresses and just information about India. But also we showed pictures of our wedding, a few pictures, because there's like hundreds and thousands of pictures. But we showed
Good.
a dozen pictures, and we told our story as far as how the arranged part of the marriage came about, and it was even more intriguing because she was in India and I was here,
Okay.
and so it became a little bit. So anyway, that was the course the lectures.
But that's
that we taught.
interesting, besides the subject matter, which is interesting, and the aside, I want to ask that you're still happily married after you had to share 3 lectures together.
Yes,
Yes, they did.
That's-
They did a beautiful
they did a great
job.
job.
Yes.
But it's interesting to hear you talk about you can perceive something that's a current event or a current interest in
Right.
somebody can develop a curriculum enough.
Well, one of the things that Neelam does is she moderates a book discussion. So I won't go into a lot of details there, but there are interesting topics. Mind over body, ways to change your behavior, is one of the lectures that's going on these days. There is one that's called The Upright Life According to 4 Religious Traditions. That's another lecture. There's another one where an art historian comes in and talks about various artists through the eyes of the artist is the title of her talk. Another gentleman does world monuments and structures. So there, people don't travel the world. He can talk about some of those. There's a gentleman who talks about Lincoln. It's a very interesting talk. Fascinating men. And the fascinating men he talks about are Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Elvis. So he puts, he weaves an interesting
Yeah,
story
good.
with all of that. So all sorts of topics are.
And I think that you've in the past had offerings on music,
yes,
different musical programs.
that's going on as well. And Neelam actually does a thing on cooking as
Okay,
well.
okay.
So cooking demo she did last spring.
And we
So-
finish every session with music in the sanctuary.
Okay. So I think it's helpful and important to have people understand how varied it is, and that there's like kind of regular academic stuff for the academics of people that want to know about science or math or English or whatever. I'm way too old to learn new English, new grammar. I never have figured out the little apostrophe, and my husband, who is an English major, does not like the fact that I don't know that. But anyway, getting back to the point is that this is really varied and very entertaining as well as fulfilling.
One of the lectures that I originally had thought about presenting, and COVID hit, and I did not put it together, and I still hope that one of these days I will put it together, is about the extraordinary origins of ordinary things. That's one that I had kind of thrown out as a topic of discussion, but then it sort of took on a life of its own, and I haven't put it together yet. But how did Teflon come about, or how did we discover this, or how did we discover that, and how it came about? So that's something I'm still working on.
That should be interesting.
Yeah.
That'll
Yeah.
be That'll be interesting. You know, you can commit yourself to teaching that next fall, so you have a deadline that you have to have it
Right,
perfect.
right. I'm building the winter curriculum now, and I've talked to a person who's an artist in the area, Carolyn Hansen, and she's looking at putting together art journaling for 4 weeks.
Okay. So you're just talking about the winter session, which starts the second week of January, and that you're putting it together now. So when does the registration, when does that information come out?
I'm hoping that we'll have it on November 14th at the last session for the fall, and people will be, and it'll be posted on the website at the same time, and shipped out in a blast email.
And then how long do people have before registration?
Until they can come the first class.
Okay. So let's keep going. What's it like on Tuesdays?
So we get there at 7:30 in the morning and make coffee, and there's pastry. So that's available for people to meet with their friends when they come in, sit at the tables in the parish hall, and sit and visit for a half hour, whatever, and then begin classes.
And the classes are how long?
Some of them are 60 minutes, some of them are 50 minutes. The ones at lunchtime are 50 minutes. And there are classes held in Parish Hall once we get started, but at lunchtime there aren't, so people can visit again and bring a sandwich and have something to eat in Parish Hall.
I remember one time I was out to lunch at Hudson's. This was several years before COVID, and it happened to be on a day that Sage was in session. And I walk in and almost every booth was full. And I asked the waitress, you know, what's going on? And she said, oh, this is like this every week, every Tuesday, because this is Sage week. So they get a good business when you're in session.
Yeah, it's very good. For downtown.
And people can bring their lunch, you know, and they have a little fellowship there with some other folks, and they just enjoy a lunch. So yeah, there's 2 one-hour classes before lunch, two classes during lunch, and the only venue we don't use is the one where people are trying to eat lunch for classes. So there are 5 places we have classes, 2 upstairs and 6 places.
Yeah,
Okay.
depending on what's going on.
So we've figured out what Sage was, how to get information. There's the online, there's the phone number. Right. These are going to be available at the library, a couple other places in town.
You can request to be put on the mail list through the website. You can ring me up and leave a message for me on Magic Jack, and it comes up on my phone. It is magical.
Wow.
And I'll call back and get their address, so they can do it several different ways.
And we've also sent stuff by postal service for people who don't have any of those things.
Right.
So.
That people that are just wanting to get involved in it will see they can go in either the winter session or wait for the spring session. And that they can wait until the second week of January to decide what they want to take. And they can bring their check with them.
They can.
How much is tuition?
The 7 weeks is $135. The 4 weeks are $75.
Okay. I think that's kind of important for people to know, that it's like
very helpful.
A one fee, and you can take advantage of it for as many weeks as there are. Is there a limit to the number of people that can participate?
Well, not in general. Tai Chi, you need enough space to extend your arms this way and move
well, we didn't even talk about exercise class. So.
Right.
So that's got a limit of 18 because it's in the upper classroom. And then Women Running with Wolves, which may run again in the winter, that was a limit of 18 because of that particular class. Everybody's encouraged to speak. So, and same with News and Views. They make a list of what they want to talk about that's current events, and then they do 5 minutes for each, and it's narrated by one of our volunteers.
There's
plenty of room.
There's plenty of room for people to, if they can't get in one class, they can probably get in another class.
And they can move about the way we got it arranged.
Okay.
They can move
It's
about.
also important to note that very few of these classes or subject matters tend to have lectures that have a continuity to them. they generally, I'll say, are standalone lectures.
Standalone.
So if they go to one lecture, let's say, and I often get asked, well, so and so, this I didn't care for this lecture. I say sometimes I'll tell them, well, maybe it'll be a little bit different next time, or I say, why don't you talk to the lecturer and ask him or her what are they going to talk about next week, so then they can decide whether to go back to it or not, or go to some other lecture. So people can move around. It doesn't cause any kind of disruption, doesn't cause us any headaches. The only ones, as Diane said, are the ones where there is a limit because of what the class is and where we ended up scheduling it because of the number of people.
Now, is SAGE affiliated with a university or a college at all?
No, it's a standalone. It originally was suggested by the president of Tri-C, and then they got a new president, and that ended. So it's self-funded. That's why the tuition, and it's standalone. We're at an Episcopal church, but it's not church affiliated.
It's not affiliated.
Yeah.
So I asked the question because I know that there are many lifelong learning entities throughout the country, and a lot of them are affiliated with a college or a university. And there are other programs in this region. I think the Tri-C does have one of the lifelong learning programs there.
It has continued for 45 years, yeah.
Yeah, so it's good for people to know that this, and so even though you're not affiliated, there's still many other models that you can glean information off of and help understand how to do things as an ever continual improvement type of process.
And it's just good for your health to stay active intellectually.
Absolutely.
And be with people. These people are friends and have lunch, as you pointed out, weekly.
It becomes a social gathering spot.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a very inclusive batch of folks, and I would say far and away the majority have gone to at some college level, and there are some PhDs mixed in the group too. And we've had fascinating people who have done things like one of the women who was attending was a house mother in sororities around the country. Absolutely fascinating.
Incredible
way
stories.
to make a living, and had such a marvelous. She started doing that after her kids were grown, and so she went to Indiana University, University of Michigan, Wisconsin.
What would you say might be one of the more out-of-the-box programs that has been very unusual and or very, very well received, where they're calling for it to come
Well,
back?
one of the things that I was worried about whether or not it would get an audience was the history of TV game shows, and they've got 18 people in there.
Wow.
So, and they're having a good time.
Good.
Yeah.
So.
And for me, just on a personal note, my training is in chemical engineering, and I retired from the Sherwin-Williams company. So at that point, I was like, okay, I need to learn something different. So I came up with some of these ideas about what to teach, because I had been doing training for the Sherwin-Williams company. So for me, it was, well, if I can learn it, maybe I can teach it, because the best way to learn it is to teach it. So this thing about finding extraordinary beginnings of ordinary things was a little bit of an expedition for me. Okay, if I learn this, I can also talk about it. So I'll read about it now. So it's not some stuff that I already knew. It's stuff I'm learning. So there's a lot of pluses for me to be part of SAGE, as whatever my roles are, and we take on any roles that make sense. So everybody does everything else.
And one of our other volunteers is a PhD in chemistry, and he's currently teaching a class in musical instruments and the artists that have made them most famous.
Oh, very, very
and
nice.
he taught a class. He was going through his pictures from his different vacations, and he taught a class a term ago about bridges, because he had taken many pictures of bridges, so we started doing the research on bridges, and that was well attended. People loved it.
Well, I think that that's a good point that both of you make, is that you don't have to have a background in order to be able to learn something enough to teach it, and that the students, or the participants, I should say, are probably engaged no matter knowledgeable or not, and that they participate so they can add to that knowledge base.
And I was in continuing education and in development, and so as I'm building the curriculum, I have a pretty good idea of what might appeal to several people on a particular topic. So it helps.
Well, this has been so much fun talking with you both, and I hope that this gets a lot of people involved in lifelong learning. I know that that's something that I've always been interested in. My mother's been very involved in lifelong learning. She moved up here a couple of years ago with me. This was right before COVID, and she signed up for a couple of SAGE courses, and she was really enjoying it before COVID hit.
Well, she should come back. We're in big spaces if her health is, if she's up to it, and she would really enjoy it. We're in the sanctuary and the old chapel, so people can spread out.
Yep.
And the air circulation is quite good. I know it's a worry for people.
Well, for everybody. So is RSV, and so is flu right now.
Right.
So, you know,
All of those
just
things.
be
All the above.